So we'd also like to take this opportunity to thank the senior Vaishnavas who have joined us this evening. So we'd like to thank His Grace Kripamoya Prabhu for being here, His Grace Akhandadi Prabhu for being here, Her Grace Sarvamangala Prabhu, Her Grace Vishwa Prabhu, His Grace Bhagavateshraya Prabhu, and His Grace Shruti Dharma Prabhu. So we'd like to thank all the wonderful senior Vaishnavas who've blessed us with their presence. And and the next one is about to be introduced by Nandago Prabhu. But thank you so much for being with us here today, and we really are very much looking forward to hearing from you. So we're very grateful. Thank you for being here this evening.
Yeah, I mean, one of the main reasons that Sena has continued in the way that it has is because of all the blessings and input from all the senior Vaishnavas. I mean, most of us are just kids that just run around, and it's just fun for us. But the guiding spirit from all the devotees is really what keeps it going. So thank you to all of you. So next up, I wanted to ask His Grace Pradyumna Prabhu. Haribo! Pradyumna Prabhu was really one of the, because I spoke to Naveen Krishna Prabhu just earlier this morning, and I was saying, what was, the key person that really kick-started this from you? And he mentioned a few names, but he said Pradyumna Prabhu really, he was a brahmachari at the time at the manor, and Pradyumna Prabhu has always been so dynamic, always thinking outside of the box, and always able to, take things to the next level. I remember one of the first services that I had within Sena was Harrow Jamming. And I think, we had a really successful program once, and there was like 26 people there. So I went to Pradyumna Prabhu, and I said, Prabhu, we got 26 people. He said, that's great, so take over Harrow now. and that's kind of, that's the type of visionary he is. And now that he's gone to Leicester, you can see that he's really made a start with that, along with his wife, Nimai Mataji. So if I could ask Pradyumna Prabhu, also Nimai Mataji, and also Dipa Mataji, to all come and take a seat and share a few thoughts. That would be really good. Thank you. Haribo. Nimai Mataji is here, and Dipa Mataji.
Hare Krishna. I think this is about the scariest thing I'm about to do and that I've ever done. But thank you all very much for gathering here this evening, and thank you for the welcome. And it's nice to be home, because Bhaktivedanta Manor was and continues to be home for me. But the years that I lived here and served here, they were very special. And there's something safe about the spiritual environment of Bhaktivedanta Manor, being in the shelter of Shishi Radha Gokulananda, being in the presence of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. And I'll say a little more about our meditation on Srila Prabhupada in a few minutes. To be here this evening with my mentors and spiritual guides from my time here, Akhandadi Prabhu, Kripamoya Prabhu, and Shruti Dharma Prabhu, who really were helping a lot of the steering, and I'll mention them as I go on this evening. Of course, as I say, I go on this evening. I've only been given 15 minutes, but we'll see how it goes. I was in charge once upon a time, and I think
it's 10 minutes, Prabhu.
I can take over again if I like. Don't tempt me. I've been asked to speak about the origin of Pandava Sena, and also to kind of share what my proudest moment was. May I ask for a little water, please? Sorry. Oh, thank you. In terms of the origin of Pandava Sena, and as I've been reflecting on this for a while, I thought I'd look at it from three perspectives. The first one is Krishna consciousness is an emergency. The second one is be ready. And the third one is meditation on Srila Prabhupada. So the first one, Krishna consciousness is an emergency. In December 1993, after a youth program here at Bhakti-Tamana, Naveen Krishna, I think Paresh, Milan, a few young people after the program came up to me and said, we think the campaign to save this temple is pretty lame. In fact, we don't think that we have a campaign. The older people are doing something, but we don't really have the energy or the kind of fear that within less than 3 months, the 16th of March, is going to come upon us, and the government are just going to lock the gates. Now, when young people speak like this and they're going to think of an idea, I got into the habit of saying, yeah, let's see what you're made of. And I said, okay, if you really want to do something with this, then why don't you arrange a few people, we'll have a meeting, and we'll see what you can do to contribute to the campaign. So they came. They came for this meeting, and we had a brief chat. And though the group was small, they sounded pretty serious. So then we organized another meeting. And at that meeting, there were more people. When I say more people, I think there were about 10. And we used to have a campaign office upstairs, and we sat around the table. And the point that came across from everybody was, are we going to see the next couple of months ahead of us as very urgent? As very urgent. And are we going to convey the message externally within the community that this is a very urgent time for our community, for this temple, and for keeping it open? So we met for many hours on that day, and I sat very patiently through all the ideas and suggestions that they were coming up with, and they were good suggestions. And of course, Naveen Krishna usually has good ideas. And at one point in that meeting, I said, before we go any further, I can see that we're serious, and I can see that we really want to do something. I said, I need to call in Akandadi Prabhu just to hear some of this, and if we're going to move forward with this, to endorse it. So I went off to call Akandadi Prabhu, who came into the office, and he sat with us. And you were very happy to let them run with it. And that was great. And then we sat for a few more hours, and we had Romapad Prabhu. Some of you may have met him. And then we went through this whole discussion on what should we call this? What should we call this? At that time, we used to have a Mana Youth Forum. And we thought, well, they've all gone off to India because, you know, it's time to have a spiritual break and the temple's closing in a few weeks, but it's okay. We can go to India, it's fine. You know, spiritual cultivation is more important, let them go. So we thought, what name can we think of that is not related to them who are in India? And of course, Ramapad Prabhu's from India, and he wanted us to have a link with the Shiv Sena. And I said, well, I think that's a bit extreme. And he said, okay, let's keep the name Sena. And then we played around with, I can't remember what other names were being suggested. But the name Pandava came up and connected with Sena, and that became the name. And very quickly a logo was drawn up and a strapline was drawn up, and a few plans were put in place. And immediately the youth wanted to go out and campaign on the streets of Wembley, of Harrow, of East London, even going outside of London to Leicester and Birmingham. I don't know if we made it further north. But the spirit with which a small group of people saw a gap in the campaign, which was pretty serious. Now that gap doesn't mean that things weren't happening. Things were progressing well, and we had a whole team behind the campaign. But the young people really wanted to ignite that campaign, really wanted to kind of make it the only thing that people were thinking about, talking about, and working for. So that sense of urgency was very intense. Was very intense in all of the young people that came along and participated in starting and setting up the Pandava Sena. And in terms of my observation, I think I would say that that small team actually did ignite the campaign. And we did add a certain spirit to it, which then, I think, supported the other campaigning activities that were going on. Initiating regular meetings outside the Hertsmere Borough Council, going out, as we saw in the video, on the vans, but also taking out the Harinam on Ealing Road and in Southall and so on, and sharing that sense of urgency with whoever they came in touch with. And I know there are some members here whose Krishna consciousness started by observing that Pandava Sena Harinam and just coming back with them to the manor and joining in and carrying on with the campaigning activities. So that sense of urgency was very profound, very intense, and it really propelled a lot of activity and energy in the campaign. The second perspective is be ready. I think it was probably the first time I worked with young people who turned up on time and who never had excuses. Nobody said, well, do we have to go today? The sense of urgency was so deep that they turned up on time, and because we didn't quite have a hierarchy, it didn't matter what services had to be done. Whether it was making a banner, whether it was making flags, whether it was standing on top of a van, there was really no argument. But that sense of being ready, Jai Sisi Radha Gokulananda Ki Jai. That sense of being ready was again very, very energetic. And people really just got on and did what had to be done. And one of my proudest moments, as I've been asked to share one, in terms of this energy, this sense of urgency and this sense of being ready, was after a few weeks of launching a Pandava Sena campaign, and that campaign was to have a gathering of worship on Lechmore Heath. Because what we wanted to demonstrate was that if we couldn't come into Bhaktivedanta Manor, then we can come outside of Bhaktivedanta Manor and still offer our worship to the deities. And what was the law against that? So we had these leaflets which were being distributed, we thought, just in a few places. But then one day I was standing outside Akandadi Prabhu's office and I saw this police officer walk down his corridor holding one of these leaflets. And I thought, uh-oh. And of course, the first thing you want to do, or what I wanted to do when I saw the police officer, is hide. Because I had a dual identity. Sometimes I was saffron, sometimes I was black. T-shirt and cap. So I thought, well, I don't want to be seen by this policeman, and he's obviously carrying our leaflet. But he walked into Akandadi Prabhu's office and they had a conversation. And then what Akandadi Prabhu shared with us was that the police had a real concern on the numbers of young people that were going to invade and descend upon Lechmore Heath. And it had become a national concern, because on the flyer we had said, young British Hindus from London, from Birmingham, from Manchester, from Bradford, from Leeds, from whatever other cities we had mentioned, will descend upon Lechmore Heath on whatever date it was. And the reason that was my proudest moment, I mean, we hadn't even done anything yet. But we had. We'd created this concern. We'd created this genuine concern in the police that something big was about to happen and that they had to be ready for it. And the reason why that's a proud moment in my reflection of Pandava Sena and the campaign is that that sense of concern was raised by 10 people. Just 10 people. Going out every weekend and having a commitment in the evenings and following through that sense of urgency. We've got to do what we can to keep Bhaktivedanta Manor open, and we've got to reach out to as many people as we can in order to do that. So that was a very big achievement. I mean, the Lechmore Heath gathering was also very big, probably not a greater concern that the police may have had at the time. It was well managed. So being ready, and the devotees that were around at that time had this sense of just being ready. What is it that we need to do that can be done to help with the campaign? And my third kind of lens at looking at this is meditation on Srila Prabhupada. And in our campaigning discussions and in our campaigning spiel, and I think we heard it on the video, it wasn't just bricks and mortar. It was a tradition, it was a cultural heritage, and we used to think of all sorts of ways in which to express this. And it was our sense of indebtedness to Srila Prabhupada that we had to come together and do what we really wanted to do and what had to be done to keep Bhaktivedanta Manor open. And the one person that taught us about this very deep meditation on Srila Prabhupada right throughout the campaign was Akhandadi Prabhu. Because during the campaign, we had many reversals, many setbacks. And every time that there was a setback, Akhandadi Prabhu would call a community meeting in Srila Prabhupada's room. And he would present to Srila Prabhupada the setback, the result of a court case or a hearing. And he would then lead us in a meditation of just being silent and reflecting collectively and awaiting guidance and direction. And Akhandadi Prabhu would then break that silence because he had an idea. He would have a plan. And he would share that. And then that would give us hope to continue the campaign. Even on other occasions, if I ever saw Akhandadi Prabhu coming out of Srila Prabhupada's room and heading to his office, I would feel that something special has happened in that room. And with the Pandava Sena in the early days, before going out on a campaign rally, we would begin that in Srila Prabhupada's room, and we would try to end that in Srila Prabhupada's room. And because we were doing all sorts of things, we had to kind of make sure that Prabhupada would be pleased with this. And Akhandadi Prabhu always gave us the conviction that Srila Prabhupada is pleased with the endeavors of the young people and the energy and the enthusiasm that they brought to the campaign. So those are very special days, and watching the young people at that time, I feel indebted to them because they nurtured and helped shape my service in trying to support them and help them. And many times I had to step in and say that they were good guys and, say the right things on their behalf, because after they'd come back, they'd go a bit wild. And rightly so. But I had to protect them. And I had to protect them and say that what they were all doing was all fine. Just don't worry about them. But I really am ever grateful to that first batch that supported me, and that spirit that they came with. I try to hold on to, and I think it's a spirit that continues to support me today in my service. And I think as we think about the future, where do we go from 20 years? Krishna consciousness is still an emergency. We still need to be ready. And not for a moment can we forget our meditation on Srila Prabhupada and lose our sense of indebtedness to him in taking Krishna out to wherever we are and through whatever activity that we're doing. So my best wishes to everybody for the next 20 years. Thank you very much.
Can we please just have 3 massively loud Haribols for His Grace Pradyumna Prabhu? Haribol! 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 So unfortunately we have to complete the next 4 speeches by 7 p.m. for the Gaur Aarti. So we humbly request that the speakers speak for 5 minutes each, and hopefully during Prasadam there will be opportunity for question and answers and for the devotees in the audience to approach each of them as well. So we'd please ask Nimai Prabhu to speak.
Hi Krishna, everybody. It's quite nerve-wracking being here. But I think I was asked to share once upon a time and what I would never do again. So when I say I mean we. I'm a journalist. I came into the Pandava Sena as a trainee journalist, was seeing these press releases saying hundreds and thousands of Hindus are going to save the temple. And I thought, well, how do I get involved? Phoned up the temple. Bhakta Pradeep picks up the phone and did my blurb. And here I am. So it was an emergency. He said, you need to be part of the Pandava Sena. There's me thinking there's thousands and thousands and thousands of us. I turn up. There were thousands of people at a vigil outside, making a lot of noise. I come into the manor for the first time, perhaps consciously. It's warm. It's beautiful. How the hell can anybody try and close this down? This spirit of no way can this ever happen was just rampant. And then that was it. Following week, went upstairs, in fact, to the campaign office. There were 10 people in that room. I didn't know that was it. And I was asked for £5 and I had a T-shirt and cap. It was only £5 then. And that was it. And literally the next day, I think Naveen Krishna Prabhu said, you'll be picked up at whatever time and we're going out. So it's like, fine. So people were at my house practically every other day, and it was an emergency. You had to be there. There was no, you weren't even phoned. Nobody had mobiles. There were definitely no emails and no Facebook. People would stand outside your house, toot or ring the doorbell. Bhaskar was one of them. And you're in the car, bundled into a car, wearing this black T-shirt, which looks really scruffy, and dropped in the middle of somewhere and told to carry a flag down the street. People are climbing on things. You know, I was a law-abiding person. And suddenly we're doing, get this ban pushed aside, walking up and down, hours, forget prashad. It was, you weren't, you just about got a banana if you were lucky. Walking up and down, you get back here, and then you sort of wait around till somebody drops you home again. And believe me, I was 15, and before I knew it, my parents were annoyed. I think Shruti Dharma Prabhu actually had to have a parents' evening for Pandava Sena. Because everybody was being picked up outside their houses, especially Saturdays and Sundays, picked up at 8 o'clock in the morning. If they were lucky, they got dropped back by 10 p.m. People were failing their exams. And that was it. That was our life. Because we thought if we didn't do it, there wouldn't be a manna here. People were crying. We just had to do it. And the other one thing, which I think was really, really important, was we were coming out in these T-shirts and jeans or whatever. It wasn't Prabhus and Matajis or Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. You were just Pandava Sena. It didn't matter if you were a boy or a girl. If you're going to get bundled into that car, told to walk home at whatever hour, you just did it. There was just no other choice. Don't you think? I remember once, actually, I turned up in a sari thinking, Sunday program, make an effort. And Pradyumna came and handed me a pile of leaflets. It was that thick. And he said, can you go and put those in, on the car park? There were thousands of cars. And I went, well, I'm not really dressed for the occasion. And he said, well, there's some wellies just round the corner. If you go and grab those, you'll be all right. But we did it. Go home muddy, go home with holly, go home or don't go home. We had to face the music at home. Going out on a campaign, my parents thought we were going to get arrested. We were out there, sticks and stones and shouting and screaming. I remember Varshana saying, she reminded me recently how, we're standing outside, we're told Big Ben's going to strike 3. Pradyumna specifically shouting in English, everybody stand back, stand back, stand back. And I think Naveen Krishna Prabhu was, everyone stand back. And in Gujarati, Pradyumna's going, as soon as it hits 3, run forward. And, it went ding, dong, ding, and everyone ran forward. And it was really, really exciting because everyone's running forward, throwing themselves onto the ground. Shivaram Swami's there, the pujaris are there with their conchas. And we were just getting picked up, manhandled by the police, and chucked to the side. And that just carried on and on until eventually we were lower and lower in number because people were getting arrested. The coach back was quite funny because it was a load of Pandava Sena girls and a few brahmacharis because all the Pandava Sena boys or anybody in a black T-shirt got arrested. But that was fine. I actually remember at one point Paresh Prabhu got arrested on the way back to the coach. Shivaram Swami was watching from the coach. He got arrested, and one of the girls was saying, well, if you're going to arrest him, you have to arrest us. And the police are saying, well, we don't need to arrest you. And she said, well, shall I punch you in the face? Another interesting person, in fact, one of the only women that got arrested was Sri Radhika Mataji. The type. Is she here? Is she here? That's all right then. She's standing next to me. She's quite loud, quite noisy, very feisty. So she's a bit like Naveen Krishna, but undercover. And she's going out there, and there's all these police, and, the kirtan's going, and everyone's screaming. And this police are trying to tell her, step back, step back. So I'm going, Sri Radhika, or Sejal. Sejal spit at him, scum. And she did. I was only joking. She just went, whoosh. And she got grabbed. I mean, Sri Radhika's small. She got grabbed, chucked over his shoulder, straight into the van. And then one of the brahmacharis who was around at the time was a bit of a thug, tall, 6'4", wasn't having it. He went in front of the police and started screaming at him. The brahmachari got arrested. I was like, oh my God. But that was it. Boys and girls together, chucking them in vans, getting them arrested. It didn't matter. It was just good fun. I mean, my mum was saying to me the other day that she couldn't believe that was 20 years ago and the amount of trouble that everyone got into. But that was just fun. And we did what we were told. It didn't matter if you had to be out there and not get home, sort of. But it was amazing. And I think one of the things I was to say was things I would never do again. And I'd have to finish by saying, if I was ever in that position, and if any of you are ever in that position, I would hope and pray that, hell yeah, you would do it again.
Hi, Mom. God, this is nerve-wracking, actually. Oh, goodness. I can't actually believe it's been 20 years. I feel a lot older. Goodness, what can I say that hasn't been said? I think the first thing I would like to say is that I'm actually very, very grateful to have been part of the Pandava Sena, part of the campaign. It was a really, really, really heart-wrenching time for me, because I kind of grew up here. I was very, very little and charging around the temple. And, you know, this was my home. It was my home. It was my family's home. And I was just so cross, actually. It was the biggest emotion that I had. I was so cross that they wanted to shut the temple. And every time I used to walk through the village, you know, I'd see someone, I'd just feel really, really terribly angry. Anyway, after a number of years of campaigning, my parents campaigning, my biggest memory is sitting on the landing upstairs with Pradyumna and a handful of people, you know, till the early hours in the morning, really, just discussing how we're going to, you know, do something really radical to help the campaign. And I think because we had so many mixed emotions, we were cross, we were passionate, we had loads of energy, we were young, you know, all that type of thing. All in university, at least most of us in university, trying to study, you know, exceptionally sidetracked because we were desperately trying to save the temple. And it was just a totally, totally amazing time. And I'm just so grateful that we had that time where we were able to be part of the campaign, be a really tiny little cog in a massive, massive machine to save the temple. And I probably haven't ever said this because a lot of things you don't say in your life, but I remember every time I saw Kannadi Prabhu walking past, I would think, God, he looks like a lion. He had this, like, God, this charisma or, you know, presence that just inspired me massively. So I'm eternally grateful for the devotees and for the deities, you know, to allow me to be part of that. It makes me really emotional, actually, because I'm just pleased to have been part of that little part. One of the things I can share with you as a memory is Pradyumna coming to my house unannounced many a times, knocking on the door. And I think I was the one person who had a fax machine, if I'm right. And we were sitting there for hours and hours drafting the most unbelievable press releases, you know, acting as if there was thousands of us, as already mentioned. And we would sit there and draft these things up and then fax them to anyone and everyone. And then, because it was my number, and they put my name at the bottom, I think at one point where Pradyumna mentioned the police, we were actually told that we would have to go, you know, go to the station, I think it was Naveen and I, and explain, you know, who we were and everything, because they were so worried that we were going to be this real force to be reckoned with. And I thought, well, there's only like 10 of us, you know, there's nothing's going to happen. But, you know, I think I was actually really quite proud to be able to go to the police station. I can't remember if we went or not now, but just to be able to go for me was a really big thing, because I'm actually quite a shy person, but at that moment I didn't feel that shyness because we were so united and so deeply affected by the situation that we would have actually done anything. In fact, I think there was talks of us going on to some building and causing havoc and a hunger strike or something, which we never it did. The other memory I can share is that I remember when we were told that the mandir was actually going to close, and we were in the temple room and we were having a kirtan. And in my life, I have to say, that was the most heartfelt kirtan of my life, because I sat there and I just thought, if this place closes, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? I was just, you know, I used to dream of the temple closing and being at the gate and not being able to get in and all these things. So, you know, my thanks to all the devotees that allowed us to be part of the Pandava Sena and gave us all the support and love and have continued to do so. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for sharing those experiences, and thank you to all the devotees that are actually there at the beginning, because we all really take it for granted. We turn up at the manor and we moan about the queues and all the rest of it. But if it wasn't for those devotees really putting their neck on the line, willing to get arrested, then we may not actually have a manor. So thank you very much.